How's it going, YouTube? It's Steve-O here, and today I'm going to be doing a top 10 favorite Pokemon list. I'll be doing some top 5s in the future of each type I like and so on and so forth, but for this list it's going to be a top 10. It was hard enough to choose 50, let alone 10, so I did the best I could to narrow it down, and the list mainly consists of my favorite designs, how much fun I had using them, and just my favorite concepts, not as much stats. Although stats play a little factor because you're not going to use something that dies in 2 seconds. But anyways, and I'm also going to be doing some battle videos of each type, mono type teams. I'm going to be starting off with the mono grass, mono bug, and mono ghost type teams. But it's going to take me a while to assemble all of them, so hopefully you guys are interested in that. But without wasting any more of your time, I'll get right to the list. So I hope you enjoy it, and please leave your favorite teams below or make a video and tag me in it. So coming in at my number 10 spot, I actually lied to you guys. I deceived yous. There's actually 2 for my number 10 because I could not decide between these 2. So I'm a fucking liar. But first of the 2 is Nidoking. I played him in Pokemon Stadium. That was my first ever Pokemon game, and I never played the original Red and Blue, Green, but I knew when I got Leaf Green that was going to be on my team. He was basically my starter. I'm not a big fan of the Kanto starters that much. I don't hate them. They're useful. I just don't really like them. So he was basically my starter. So as soon as I got him, I evolved him with a Moonstone, my Nidorino, and I kind of ditched my starter. I never really liked him. Most of you probably hate that. But I love him. He's useful. He's awesome. He looks cool, and my second on this number 10 spot is Poliwrath. He's another one that I loved using in Stadium. For him, it was more just the concept of fighting frog that was part fighting, part water. It was unique at the time. I really, really liked him. He's my favorite water Pokemon from that generation, and I just like frogs. I like to catch them when I was a kid, and I would rather put a bullet in my head than decide between these 2 for my number 10 spot. I just could not choose. They both hold a special spot in my heart, so that'll be my number 10 spot on this list. Coming in at number 9 is the only legendary on this list. He was one of my favorites to use in Pokemon Stadium, and I have a deep nostalgia for this one. My cousin and I used to play our Fire Red and Leaf Greens on our Game Boy Advances at school, and he'd come over once in a while and we'd play. And one day he came over and said that he found a bird Pokemon at level 50 that he couldn't catch, and he accidentally saved his file, so he couldn't catch it again. So he showed me where to go, and I ended up catching it. It took me about 5 hours. I battled it, but I had no idea you could catch Zapdos in-game. So I was so psyched when the minute I approached it. I saved my game right away, and I knew. I'm like, holy shit, you can catch Zapdos. And the minute I knew I could own my own Zapdos was one of the coolest moments of my childhood. So that's why it takes number 9 on my list. It's not much higher than number 9 because it's a legendary, and obviously its stats are going to be good. So I try not to use legendaries too much, but I had to include this one on my list. Coming in at number 8 is actually one of the newer generations, Generation 5. I really tried hard not to look up the Pokédex before the game actually came out. I wanted to play through the new generation, not knowing what was out there, not knowing which Pokemon and what they evolved into, but curiosity kind of got the best of me, and I took one glance at it, and when I seen Volcarona, I knew I was going to catch it. I didn't even know. I just looked at the picture, so I didn't know the typing, but man, is the typing ever cool, and I hate that he can't get it till late in the game, so I found that out the hard way, so I bred one and played through it again with it from the beginning, and it doesn't evolve till late in the game, but its stats are incredible, and that's not even why I like it. I didn't even know it had good stats. I just knew I wanted one because it looked cool, and Bug is one of my favorite types. So a Bug Fire type that was like a moth, I wanted one so badly. And it's so awesome that it turned out to be just a powerhouse competitively. and I have one right now named Sunny, and I'm going to be uploading some videos because he's a nightmare for my opponents. So that is my number 8 on this list. Coming in at number 7 is Exploud. This was a member of my original playthrough in Sapphire. First Pokemon I ever caught in the wild was a Whismur, so it's a very special one to me. Not to mention, it is useful competitively. It can learn almost every move in the game. Fire Blast, Thunder, Surf, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast, Earthquake. It can be a physical or special attacker, and it absorbs hits for days with that HP. So it's a fun one to use because you can literally teach it anything. Not to mention, it's decent competitively, and I've always liked Exploud and the whole evolutionary line. So that is my number 7 on this list. For my 6th spot on this list is none other than Typhlosion. I mean, come on, just look at this thing. It looks like it's going to explode in your face. Just ready to go, pumped up, angry at the world. I love it. I know a lot of people love Charizard, and for good reason. It's good. It's got 2 Mega Evolutions. I mean, I think it's bullshit that it got 2, and the rest got 1. But when Typhlosion finally gets a Mega Evolution, I'm going to train it to be a Charizard Killer. I'm going to nickname it Charizard Killer, because that's what it's going to be. I love all the Gen 2 starters. I think they're all cool, and I love how they're all just singular types. But I just could not say no to Typhlosion for this list, so it's going to be taking the number 6 spot for sure. Number 5 spot was also tricky because I couldn't decide whether I like this Pokemon better than Typhlosion. But it turns out I slightly do. I know a lot of people that played Johto region had a hard time with Whitney and her milk tank, which I won't lie, I did too. It's a pain in the ass, but who really gave me a hard time out of the gym leaders was actually Claire. When I played through with my Typhlosion, I caught an Ampharos, or I raised an Ampharos, and I had a hardest time taking down her Kingdra. It took out my Typhlosion a few times, and my Ampharos couldn't do super effective damage because of the Dragon typing. And at the time, there was no Dragon types you could really catch early in the game, besides maybe a Dragonite if you raised it to level 55 at that point, which most people didn't. And that was the only weakness it had. And right away when I battled that thing, I wanted one. So I went out and caught a Horsey and raised a Kingdra, and to this day on my team in Omega Ruby, I have one. I love it. When Garchomps and Salamances see this thing, they run the other way. It ice beams them in one shot. It can take hits, and it kind of sucks now because it has 2 weaknesses with the Fairy, but it's still a great Pokemon to use, and I'm thinking about doing a mono water type team one day, and you can definitely count on him being on there. And that is my number 5 on this list. Coming in at number 4 is a Pokemon that I think most people would be afraid of if Pokemon were real, and would keep them indoors after hours. And yes, that is Crobat. This thing has wicked speed, so you're not going to outrun it. And it has a monstrous attack. It's pretty frail, though, mind you, but it is decent competitively, and it's got a pretty decent typing. Overall, the reason I love it so much is because when I was playing in my Sapphire version, I obviously knew about Zubat and Golbat because I played Pokemon Stadium, and I used it quite often. I thought it was goofy looking, but I liked it. I liked bats growing up, and I had no idea that this thing could even evolve. So when I got my Golbat at level 22, I leveled it up once more to level 23, and it started to evolve again. I remember being up late that night playing, and I was like, holy shit, it's evolving again? What does it evolve into? And it was Crobat, and I thought it looked awesome. Colors flipped, and I ended up just destroying everything with it for the rest of the game. So that is my number 4 on this list. Coming in at number 3 is a Gen 6 Pokemon. There's not really a generation I don't like. They all have really cool Pokemon, and like I said earlier, there's so many that I wish I could have included on this list, all from all generations. Every generation has a few decent Pokemon that I think everyone likes, but my favorite from Gen 6 was definitely Trevenant. It's part grass, part ghost. Those are my 2 favorite types in the game, in that order. It's not even bad competitively, and I think it's underused. I think it's not appreciated enough. I love it. Gorogeist is good too. I like it. I've used it, and I like how they gave 2 grass ghost evolutionary lines in Gen 6. I thought that was so cool. And October's when my birthday is, so I thought Gorogeist was kind of cool too. But Trevenant's my favorite of the 2. I just hate that it's a trade evolutionary line. I hate trade evolutionary lines. I think it's the most stupidest thing. I had a Haunter in Generation 1, or my Leaf Green version, and I couldn't figure out that you had to trade it. I didn't think to look it up on the internet. I just didn't know, and I leveled it up to level 60, and I just gave up on it. It depressed me, but anyways, enough of my complaining. Trevenant takes the number 3 spot. Love its typing, love its design, and I think it's a cool concept. Coming in at number 2 is a member of my original Sapphire team. After Far Arbor Town, I found a Swablu in the wild. I caught it, and I thought it looked kind of cool, so I raised one. And when it hit level 35, I couldn't believe it turned to part dragon. I was not expecting that at all. So I destroyed everything with that, and I loved it. And when I got my Alpha Sapphire version, you bet I caught a Swablu, and the fact that I got a Mega Evolution I was psyched about. I'm a little disappointed Flygon didn't. I think a lot of people are, but a lot of people hate Altaria's Mega Evolution. I like it. And it turns part Fairy, which really screws up people in competitive, because I switch in on a lot of Dragon types with it, and I Mega Evolve it, and their outrages don't even have any effect. It screws them right up. And if you haven't checked out any of my battle videos, they're not the best quality right now until I get my capture card, but Altaria just saves the day. It's a nightmare for most people competitively, and the design, I don't really care about the design. The design's kind of neat to me. I know a lot of people don't like it, but awesome Pokemon. A lot of nostalgic relations with it, and I think it's useful as well. It's a bulky beast, so Altaria takes my number 2 spot on this list. And before we get to my first pick, here are a few honorable mentions that I wish I could have included. And finally, coming in at number 1 is Blaziken. Just kidding. Sceptile. Blaziken was actually my first ever starter Pokemon for my first ever playthrough ever. But when I bought Emerald, I decided to try out Trico, and I loved him. It's my favorite type grass, and I just love its design. I love how it's more of a sleek, fast kind of grass starter. Nothing compares to Sceptile for me. Blaziken's awesome. Swampert's awesome too. There's not really a bad Gen 3 starter in my opinion, and that's my favorite generation, but Sceptile was just always my favorite. It might not have been the best competitively, but I loved how it got a Mega Evolution that makes it part dragon, and that's also very, very unique. And I think it's actually on a lot of people's top 10 lists. So Sceptile easily takes number 1. And that will conclude this top 10 list. And that will conclude my top 10 favorite Pokemon list. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you liked some of the picks. I'd like to hear some of your favorites, so leave a comment or tag me in a video. I hope I didn't insult any of you guys. I'm looking at you, Charizard fans. Just kidding. Charizard's pretty cool, I gotta admit. And I hope to be making more videos in the future. I'm going to be making top 5s of each type, and I'm going to be doing mono type battles. So if you're interested in that, please check me out. And I'm pretty new at making videos, so easy on the criticism. Any helpful advice or tips to make my videos better would be greatly appreciated. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching.